Hello, welcome back to BlenderSushi live loading. So in this video, it's gonna be like a continuation from previous where we have we are investigating an F curve and how we can offset it and then all those sort of things. But now this one is kind of related to that. Um, I'm using sphere chalk. Basically, I'm generating these kind of shapes, right? And all random shapes being generated by this box being randomized using this randomized input vertices, and each one of them has a different seed. Now what's different about this setup is that this is all the shapes, and then I kind of combine all the shapes and then I interpolate the shapes so that from based on all those random shapes I can interpolate from one shape to another. The effects is similar to if we are using like a noise, although this is actually slightly different because it's kind of offsetting from one shapes into another and then into the next one, into the next one. So this is although it's similar to shape keys, it's not really. It's kind of a spiritual thing that we can use it. So let's start from scratch so we can understand this. I'll quit Blender and restart real quick. This way it doesn't show like the crashing. Okay, let's delete everything and then go to compositing, sphere chalk, and this is kind of like the sphere chalk shape keys. It's almost like shape keys, but I don't know if I'm doing it right either. But anyway, let's start with the box and then use a randomized input vertices and then use a viewer draw. We already know this. So we have box and we have randomized. If we have randomized, just increase the amplitude slightly. So we have that. Okay, these shapes, and we can randomize using the seed. That's a single object. What if you want to have like a many shapes that you can generate on the fly? We can use range integer. Let's use you can use either range or count. Let's use count. Actually use range. Start, step, stop. Start and step. Let's create 10 of them. Plug into the seed. Now we have 10 data being generated. Each one have a slightly random value, but you know this is sphere chalk, so in order to kind of make sense of it, we need to have multiple transform. And for the location, I'm going to use I can use line. Actually we have 10 of them. Currently it's like we have 10 objects, but they are still the same. Of course we need like multiple polygon data, polygon indices data, so we need to use a list repeater. We have 10 of them, so now it's correct. So we can use integer input for this and that. So we can have as many shapes as we want. Okay, that's one thing, but that's not what we want. We kind of want to interpolate from this shape into the next shape, and then so on and so on. So for that, we need to use vector interpolation, MK3. Let's try. If we just plug in the result of these vertices being randomized with 10 different seed, 10, and then plug into the vector interpolations. Let's see what we got. We have this. Looks like it looks like our boxes, but it's not really. It's just like a floating floating points. I wonder why. Now I think we might be able to use a list delete, maybe. No, I think list delete is wrong. It's actually, I tried it before. I think list flip is what we need for this. We flip the data so that's now instead of it's looking at a like a 5 or multiple cube data. By flipping the list, we are looking at 8 points of each cube. So now with the 8 points, it's kind of interpolating properly. So you can do it in cubic or linear fashion. This is actually going through the 10 different interpolations, 10 different shapes that we create. If we plug in the polygon into this guy, it doesn't work. I was wondering why, but then if I use another list flip here, apparently it works. I don't know why, but and I don't know if I'm doing it correctly, but this seems to be working, so I think that's fine. That's fine with me. Here with the T, we can try using range float, although I don't need to do this. Now that's actually outputting the 10 different random. We don't need that. Now we just need a single cube that goes into the it's copying the shape. We have like 10 different shapes, so from 0 to 1 it's kind of doing that. That's exactly what I'm planning to do. So if we have like let me delete that. If we have a time frame info and then we have a map range, plug the time into this guy, and then let's say from frame 1 to 100, new, min, and max is from 0 to 1. Plug this guy into the interpolations, and then we have this cube that's kind of moving around from one shape to the next shapes, and then it stops after frame 100. You can use it in the cubic fashion. It's kind of more smooth, I think. I found that really interesting. In fact, you can probably loop it. To do the looping in Spreadchalk, you need to use math absolute, and I'm not gonna do that yet. But my idea is to be able to generate a multiple of these objects. Each one of them have a offset of the shapes. I don't know if this is possible. 10 of these objects, and then each one of them should be an offset. What happens if I use like a math here and then use a range float and then kind of offset it? It seems like it tries to do something, but it doesn't quite work. Now this is actually more correct. From the shape of it, I can see there's like a bit of offset there. Maybe offset it more. Yeah, that's it's almost there, except that the edge, maybe the edge polygon needs to be repeated. And yep, that's the setup that I want. This is 10 cubes being generated on the fly, and then each one are also generating like this 10 random value. That's this is quite interesting, I found. So yeah, let's say if I wanna have like 20 of this guy. Now 1 2 3 4 5, so this is 20 of them. It's pretty fast. I'm not seeing 20 because I forgot to plug in the step to this guy. Okay. Oh, actually not the step, the vertices. The step should be 1. So now you can see the effects. Which one starts first? I think this guy starts first, and then we see this all these kind of motions, and then one of them, after 100 frames, each one of them stop. Yeah, I think this is pretty interesting, even though the nodes itself slightly complicated, but still quite easy to understand. The line itself I can change to anything, like maybe like random. The scale I can randomize. The box, we are not doing anything with the scaling at the moment. It's just like the box doing random stuff because of this randomized input here. I can perhaps change the order of this. I can use like a vector, like a noise, instead of using this range floats. That's like acting just like the index. But this is pretty interesting. I don't want to go too far, I guess. So let me summarize this. Originally, we have just a box. Okay, we start from this box. I'll create a frame. This box being randomized by these nodes, randomized input vertices, and each one of them we assign a different seed. By assigning different seed, we have random shape of box. With those random shapes of box, we kind of interpolating the points. As long as they have the same points, they will interpolate from one shape to another shape. The effect is looking like a noise, but it's not really. And then the next thing I did was kind of using a frame and then offsetting the frame using range float. That way we have this kind of weirdness, kind of offset of animation from one shape to another shape. This range float can really be randomized if I really want it. So if I use like a random number generator, and then frame goes into the size here, and then value from -50 to 50. With this random value, I can just plug it in, and then now instead of now the effect is more random. So each object's kind of behaving, it's kind of doing something at a different time. They're still doing the same animations from start to the end, but they're doing it at a different time because we're offsetting the time. And we can randomize the seed as well over here. So this is quite new for me. Even this is kind of accidental. I came up with this by just by improvisations. So I guess this is something that can be useful at some point. It's not easy to understand, but anyway, it's how you might want to kind of shape keys and offset the shape keys inside SphereChalk. If you have like multiple shapes, this is how you might want to think of it. It can be simpler, of course, maybe the animators want to give, okay, this is the shape that I want, like all these characters doing these weird shapes on the face, and then this is 100 shapes. I want to randomize the order of these shapes using spray chalk. Maybe this is kind of how you do it. Yeah, anyway, it's if you have any comments, feedbacks, you can leave it down below. I'll see you in the next live noding.